The Crusades and their influence on the Italian city-states. Introduction. The Crusades, 1095 to 1291, were not merely military and religious campaigns aimed at reclaiming the Holy Land. They also had profound economic, political, and cultural repercussions throughout Europe and the Mediterranean. One of the regions most significantly affected was the Italian peninsula, particularly its rising city-states such as Venice, Genoa, Pisa, and Amalfi. These maritime powers leveraged the Crusades to expand their influence, accumulate wealth, and establish themselves as dominant players in Mediterranean trade. This essay examines how the Crusades influenced the Italian city-states, analyzing their economic, political, and cultural transformations. It explores their roles as key logistical hubs, financiers, and trade intermediaries during the Crusades, and how these roles propelled them to unprecedented levels of wealth and power. 1. Background: Italian city-states in the 11th century. 1.1 The fragmented political landscape. In the 11th century, the Italian peninsula was a patchwork of competing city-states, principalities, and ecclesiastical territories. The lack of a centralized authority, such as a strong monarchy, allowed cities like Venice, Genoa, and Pisa to operate with considerable autonomy. 1.2 The maritime tradition. These cities were already major maritime hubs with well-established fleets, trading networks, and expertise in navigation. Their geographic location in the central Mediterranean positioned them as natural intermediaries between Western Europe, Byzantium, and the Islamic world. 1.3 The growing influence of the Church. The Papal States, headquartered in Rome, exerted significant influence across the peninsula, both spiritually and politically. The Church's call for crusades further tied the Italian city-states to the broader goals of Christendom, setting the stage for their involvement. 2. The economic impact of the Crusades. 2.1 Italian city-states as logistical hubs. The Crusades required massive logistical support, including ships, supplies, and finances. Italian city-states became indispensable in meeting these needs. Venice. Known as the Queen of the Adriatic, Venice played a central role in transporting crusaders and their supplies across the Mediterranean. Its shipbuilding capabilities and control over key ports gave it a logistical advantage. Genoa and Pisa. These cities also provided fleets and supplies, competing fiercely with Venice for lucrative contracts with crusader leaders. 2.2 Expansion of trade networks. The Crusades opened new trade routes and markets in the eastern Mediterranean. Access to the Levant. Italian merchants established permanent trading outposts in crusader states like Acre, Antioch, and Tyre. These outposts became hubs for importing luxury goods such as spices, silk, and precious metals. Monopoly on trade. Italian city-states negotiated exclusive trade privileges with crusader rulers and, in some cases, with the Byzantine Empire, solidifying their dominance in Mediterranean commerce. 2.3 Accumulation of wealth. The profits from transporting crusaders, supplying their armies, and trading in goods from the east allowed Italian merchants to amass vast fortunes. These profits were reinvested in the cities, funding infrastructure, art, and the construction of fleets, further enhancing their power. 3. Political gains from the Crusades. 3.1 Establishment of trade colonies. Italian city-states used the Crusades to establish colonies and concessions in key strategic locations. Venetian dominance in the Fourth Crusade. Venice played a decisive role in redirecting the Fourth Crusade toward Constantinople in 1204. After the sack of the city, Venice secured significant territorial gains, including control over Crete and parts of the Aegean Sea. Genoese expansion. Genoa established trading colonies along the Black Sea, creating a vast commercial network that extended to Asia. 3.2 Increased autonomy. The wealth and influence gained during the Crusades allowed Italian city-states to assert greater independence from larger political entities, including the Holy Roman Empire and the Papal States. 3.3 Maritime rivalries. The newfound wealth and power of Italian city-states led to intense rivalries, particularly between Venice and Genoa. These rivalries shaped Mediterranean politics for centuries and occasionally spilled over into conflicts like the Genoese-Venetian Wars. 4. Cultural and social impacts. 4.1 Cross-cultural exchange. The Crusades facilitated cultural exchange between East and West, with Italian city-states acting as intermediaries. Adoption of Eastern innovations. Italian merchants brought back scientific, medical, and architectural knowledge from the Islamic world and Byzantium. Introduction of luxury goods. The import of goods such as spices, textiles, and exotic art transformed the tastes and lifestyles of the Italian elite. 4.2 Urban development. The wealth generated by the Crusades fueled urban growth and cultural flourishing in Italian city-states. Renaissance foundations. The economic prosperity of the Crusades laid the groundwork for the Italian Renaissance, as wealthy merchant families became patrons of art and science. Architectural advancements. Many Italian cities built grand cathedrals, palaces, and public buildings during this period, reflecting their newfound prosperity. 5 Case studies. Key Italian city-states and their roles. 5.1 Venice. Role in the Fourth Crusade. Venice manipulated the Crusaders into attacking Constantinople to advance its own commercial interests. Maritime Empire. By the end of the Crusades, Venice had established a maritime empire stretching from the Adriatic to the eastern Mediterranean. 5.2 Genoa. Trade expansion. Genoa capitalized on the Crusades to expand its influence in the western Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Cultural exchange. Genoese merchants were instrumental in bringing Eastern goods and ideas to Europe. 5.3 Pisa. Naval contributions. Pisa provided fleets for early Crusades and established trading outposts in the Levant. Decline in influence. Pisa's fortunes waned in later centuries, overshadowed by Venice and Genoa. 5.4 Amalfi. Early success. Amalfi was an important maritime power before the Crusades, and its merchants contributed to early Crusader efforts. Decline. Amalfi's influence diminished as larger city-states like Venice and Genoa rose to prominence. 6. Long-term impacts of the Crusades on Italian city-states. 6.1 Consolidation of maritime power. The Crusades solidified the maritime dominance of Italian city-states, setting the stage for their continued influence during the Age of Exploration. 6.2 Foundations for the Renaissance. The wealth, knowledge, and cultural exchanges facilitated by the Crusades contributed directly to the Italian Renaissance, which began in the 14th century. 6.3 Shift in European power dynamics. The rise of Italian city-states as economic and cultural powerhouses marked a shift away from the feudal economies of Northern Europe. Conclusion. The Crusades were a turning point for the Italian city-states, transforming them from regional powers into dominant players in Mediterranean trade and politics. Their strategic roles as logistical. 7. Economic strategies during the Crusades. 7.1 Maritime superiority. The Italian city-states' dominance in maritime trade was crucial for the Crusades. Their shipbuilding expertise and established control over Mediterranean trade routes made them indispensable. Shipbuilding innovations. Venice, Genoa, and Pisa continuously improved their ship designs to handle both military and commercial needs. These advancements ensured their fleets could carry crusaders, provisions, and trade goods efficiently. Fleet financing. Merchants and wealthy families in these cities often funded the construction and maintenance of fleets, establishing early forms of joint stock ventures. The wealth generated from these enterprises reinforced the city's economic power. 7.2 Financial systems. The Crusades catalyzed the development of sophisticated financial systems in the Italian city-states. Letters of credit. To facilitate trade and crusader campaigns, Italian merchants pioneered the use of letters of credit, reducing the need to transport large sums of money. Banking institutions. The wealth accumulated during the Crusades helped lay the foundation for powerful banking houses, such as the Medici family in Florence. Though their rise came later, the groundwork was established during this period. 7.3 Control of key resources. Italian merchants gained access to valuable goods from the East, including spices, silks, and precious metals. Monopolistic practices. Agreements with Crusader states and Byzantine authorities allowed Italian merchants to monopolize trade routes and dominate markets in Europe. Integration into local economies. Italian merchants often settled in Levantine cities, integrating into local economies and establishing long-lasting trade hubs. 8. Political rivalries and their impacts. 8.1 Venice versus Genoa. The rivalry between Venice and Genoa was one of the most defining aspects of the Crusader period. The battle for Constantinople. During the Fourth Crusade, 1202 to 1204, Venice emerged as a dominant power by orchestrating the sack of Constantinople. This event not only secured vast Venetian trade privileges but also sidelined Genoese ambitions in the eastern Mediterranean. Naval conflicts. The two city-states engaged in a series of naval wars throughout the 13th and 14th centuries, with each seeking to outmaneuver the other in controlling Mediterranean trade. 8.2 Pisa's decline. While Pisa initially played a prominent role in the early Crusades, its rivalry with Genoa and internal political instability led to its decline. Loss of naval power. Genoa's victory over Pisa at the Battle of Meloria in 1284 marked the end of Pisa's maritime dominance. Shift in focus. Pisa's economic and political focus turned inward, allowing Genoa and Venice to dominate. 8.3 Amalfi's marginalization. Amalfi, an early maritime power, was overshadowed during the Crusades by the rise of Venice, Genoa, and Pisa. Despite its historical importance in Mediterranean trade, Amalfi's influence waned due to its lack of resources and inability to compete in the militarized environment of the Crusades. 9. The Fourth Crusade and the rise of Venice. The Fourth Crusade, 1202 to 1204, was a turning point not only in the history of the Crusades but also for the Italian city-states, particularly Venice. 9.1 Venice's role in diverting the crusade. Negotiation with Crusaders. Venice agreed to provide transport for the crusade in exchange for payment, but when the Crusaders failed to pay the full amount, Venice redirected the campaign toward Zara, a Christian city, and later Constantinople. Sack of Constantinople. The 1204 sack of Constantinople by the Crusaders, orchestrated largely by Venetian interests, resulted in the dismantling of the Byzantine Empire. Venice secured significant territories, including Crete and parts of the Aegean. 9.2 Political and economic gains. Territorial expansion. Venice's control over key islands and ports in the eastern Mediterranean solidified its dominance in maritime trade. Trade privileges. Venetian merchants gained exclusive rights in Constantinople and other Byzantine territories, effectively monopolizing eastern trade routes.